Hello, my name is Lydia Baker and welcome to Introverted Indies. I'm co-host with Lucy McLaren and I'm here today to chat with Holmes about her novels. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ellen Holmes. I am the author of Space Collisions and The Floating Castle. I'm a Midwestern writer living in Ohio, and I'm also the founder of the Small Spec Book Awards.
Great to meet you. Could you tell us a little bit about your books?
My latest book, which is also my debut novel, is The Floating Castle. It's an adult, dark, epic fantasy. It focuses on three morally gray women who end up making an enemy of a powerful and dangerous prince. The three women have to work together to escape the harm the prince wishes to inflict upon them. The book is set in a castle that literally floats with the help of magic and engineering. There are also things like a sea of monsters, vicious dragons, an eternal rose garden, a witch matriarchy, political intrigue, family drama, and the looming threat of war. While I would compare the dragons to those in the Priory of the Orange Tree and the family feuds to those in the Women's War, my book is not a romantasy. My goal with the book was to keep beloved and familiar themes found in epic fantasy, but to give them a fresh spin. My hope is that the very different audiences from like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, The Wheel of Time, and even Throne of Glass will converge on my book and say, this is the epic fantasy I didn't know I needed.
And could you share with us a little bit about what inspired you to write your epic fantasy?
So, Toni Morrison is famous for saying, I wrote the first book because I wanted to read it. She noticed a major omission in published stories and wanted to fill that void. It was sort of a similar idea for me. I was reading all of this romantasy and epic fantasy, but what I was missing was an adult epic fantasy about complicated women who weren't in a romantic relationship. I know they have to exist, but I was having so much trouble finding them. It seemed like women almost always had to have a love interest to be worth reading about on the page, and their love interest took up a major portion of the book. The women also had to be smart and beautiful and powerful and alluring. Don't get me wrong. I love stories like that and power tall romantasy writers out there, but I wanted some balance in my life. I also didn't like how when I picked up an epic fantasy book without romance, it was well, not always, but almost always about men. Um, or the women were archetypal, you right? Stagnant, probably also beautiful, powerful, alluring. Let's be real. I wanted something different in my book. While the book's premise hinges on a political marriage, I wanted to pose the question, what if a character's betrothed was an awful person and meant to do them harm? Essentially, what if there wasn't any love interest at all? No enemies to lovers, no love at first sight, no Stockholm syndrome, and no acceptance of an abusive relationship. I wanted to turn all those tired and sometimes toxic tropes on their head. Also, not all the women in my book are beautiful, not all the women in my book are powerful. And while there are hints of romance here and there, none of it is a defining factor for my protagonists. I want you to see these complicated, morally gray women in all their lowest points. I want you to see them grapple with oppression and their own personal biases. I want to show you the ugly parts of these women when so many other fantasy stories only want to show you one side of a female character, especially the pretty side. Most importantly, I want to show you women who exist for themselves, not for their romantic interests. At the same time, while there is a lot of character development in my books, I still want to give you an epic fantasy that keeps you on the edge of your seat. It makes you want to come back for more, right?
Amazing. I love seeing women portrayed in different ways in fantasy books. So, could you give us your favourite line from the book?
So, I'm a sucker for atmosphere and sensory details, and since I can't disclose my favorite line from the book because it contains spoilers, I'll read a short paragraph from chapter 6 that I really like instead. So, here that is. If the stars in Sliver of Moon didn't light up the sky, sailing on the black silk sea at night would have been like gliding through a vast and seamless darkness. It was particularly disorienting for Li Ling because when she squinted over the bow, she could not differentiate the water from the hull of the ship. None of the celestial lights reflected on the surface. The sea absorbed their glow instead, drowning any radiance in darkness.
That was brilliant. Could you give us one of your best top tips for authors?
Oh, my number one tip for writing a book is the story you have and the art that you practice is first and foremost for you, full stop. Love it deeply and remember that love when you're revising and when people begin to give you criticism. It's okay to listen to how to improve your story, and you should. You should listen carefully to those who truly mean to help you improve. But it's also okay to love your story and make the executive decisions about what stays in and what stays out.
And could you tell us where we can buy your books? Because I'm sure people would love to know.
The paperback and ebook will be available from major retailers on November 1st. You can find all the links to my books on my website, ellenholmeswriter.wordpress.com. I am hoping to get my book into bookstores, especially my beloved indie bookstores and libraries as well, but that will take a lot more work and time. If you want to see the floating castle on shelves at your local bookstore or library, please request it from the bookstore owner or librarian. It helps out indie authors everywhere when you do this, as we don't have the connections or advertising opportunities that traditional publishers have.
And please could you tell us all your social media handles and any web pages or newsletters that our listeners can sign up to.
So you can follow me in a number of places. You can learn more about my books at ellenholmeswriter.wordpress.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter and subscribe to my blog for all kinds of exciting updates. You can find me on Goodreads as an author under my pen name, Ellen Holmes. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is L_N_Holmes. And on Blue Sky at ellenholmeswriter.bsky.social. And on Twitter or X or whatever at Ellen Holmes Writer. And I also have an author feature on Indiosecrecy, so that's cool.
Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Holmes. It's been great to chat to you.
Thanks to everyone at Introverted Indies for having me on today. I am really grateful to be part of this community, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me, everybody who's watching. I'm Lydia Baker, author of fantasy novel The Return of the Queen and sci-fi novel Ava, that are both available online. Thank you very much.